Welcome back to our series where we unpack some valuable lessons from the world of property and business. And we are talking to property practitioner Colin Mansfield, who knows the property industry inside and out. Colin, a warm welcome back. And it's going to be lovely chatting to you tonight.
Thanks, Anne. I've missed you like crazy.
Yes, it's felt like ages since we've spoken. I think it's a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe.
It's a couple of weeks.
Yes.
A couple of weeks. I haven't been myself. I've been at a loss without you. I'm admitting it publicly.
Shame, Colin. So sorry. All right. Well, I've got an exciting topic for tonight. It's actually a lovely one. And the topic is this one. Which aspects of the real estate profession have been the most rewarding for you personally?
And you've chosen a topic that I couldn't really prepare for. So I'm just going to launch into it and just start chatting. So something really interesting, the average age of first-time homeowners or buyers in South Africa, you won't believe it, is between 36 and 38 years old. And that is old. If you think that actually we're all the young couples, buying houses and all that stuff. But the dynamic at the moment is women and 36 to 38 years old. So that's very interesting. But what it does is it gives you this immense satisfaction. At that age, you've assisted somebody to achieve a really major life milestone that they probably never thought they would achieve. Age 28, 29, 30, they've been to varsity, wherever and now they're in their late 30s, and suddenly now they've achieved a real milestone. And I know from interacting with my clients over the years, a lot of them never thought they would ever get to that milestone, for many various reasons, So South Africa's come a long way in the last 20, 30 years. And one of the ways it manifests itself is people achieving their milestones, at quite an advanced stage. Yes, sure, there are young couples and young people buying. Generation Z, a very unique group of buyers at the moment. They're also in the market. They are relevant. But I'm talking personally, what it's done for me. So they're one of the largest financial and emotional decisions of these buyers' lives. And them trusting you to be their guide to ultimately give them a set of keys. Sometimes there's a family dynamic. And as a family man, that gives me immense satisfaction. And I can see it on their faces and I can relate to it. And it gives me a sense of personal fulfillment. It has over the years. And I would never underestimate that feeling that I get. So when days are dark, you've heard that saying before, and you have one of these interactions or whatever, it makes up for it and it lasts for weeks. And it is immensely satisfying. So that's really, if I can touch on it, it's happened to me a number of times. It's something that I can mention, and I continue to get satisfaction out of it. And I'm talking in no particular order now. Unlimited earning potential. In theory, you're running your own business. The company I work for has got a slogan: in business for yourself, but you're not alone, or words to that effect. I don't want to be everybody will know who I work for. And to a large extent, your income is directly tied to your work ethic, your networking skills and dedication. There's no artificial ceiling on your earnings, and the financial rewards can be substantial for top producers. So before we started tonight, I mentioned to you that the town we're living in is not growing. And we've had our corporates disappear, there are no more mines and this and that and the other. So if I had my life over, I would have definitely gone to another town or another area where I could have earned a lot more money. I've got colleagues that drive really nice Porsches, but not in my town because you simply can't, But in theory, you can have financial autonomy and unlimited earning potential. And my own method is I put something that I want on my screen as a screensaver. And then when I achieve it, I change the screen to something else. And that's how I've worked over the last years. And it's just my way of doing things. You'll also learn that being a commission-only earner, you really have to get some advice and look at how you run your affairs. Otherwise, you'll have nothing to show for all the money you earned. And I know people that are of advanced years, and they've been exceptional agents, and they've got nothing to show for it, and they can't stop working. You and I've touched on it. I think if you on a previous occasion, if you can retire, I think you've done pretty well. And schedule flexibility. I'm a bit different to some of my colleagues. I've got this ethic. I've got to go to work every day, and I've always been like that. And that's the way I was taught, and I always thought people expected it of me, and to this day I still do it. I go to my office and I clock in and I work and schedule. It's so yes, I've got that underlying flexibility in my schedule. I plan my day, and to me that's probably better because I've been in a corporate environment, where things were made to you just had to do certain things because that's how your day unfolded. Now, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm busy planning my day, and it's going to go my way as much as possible, and that. But in the same way, being really dedicated, you can find yourself not having a weekend off for the last month, and chasing business and all that kind of stuff. So there are dangers to this, and well, in my case, I'm limited in my imagination and stuff, but I get satisfaction out of planning my days, planning my time, making sure I have time off. Continuous learning and professional growth. We've also touched on this on a previous occasion, where there's continuing professional development, which is an attempt by the government and your industry to try and keep everybody updated and all that kind of stuff. And not everybody's built the same. My wife, for example, off her own bat, studied for like 20 years. When she finished one degree, she would re-enroll for another degree, and that was something that was, and I think boys are different to girls. Boys don't want to study, like we were at school, we didn't want to study, and the girls were much more clever than boys. But ultimately, you realize in your profession that you've now chosen, you better bone up on your knowledge and become really sharp and all of that stuff. So I think as a consequence of realizing that, I get great satisfaction out of learning things about my profession. And I've actually come to the realization, or I've actually mentioned it to a couple of people that I speak to, I can't understand, if you chose this profession and you're not qualified yet and you're like been at it for 10 years and whatever, what are you doing? You're seriously lacking, and give it a try, get the qualification or whatever, and suddenly your own attitude will change, for the better, I believe. And so I know my attitude changed, and I get great satisfaction out of knowing a lot of things. I have gained so much knowledge, and I never thought I would know. And how does it manifest itself? Day to day. Whenever you speak to somebody, and I've also mentioned this because I don't have a lot of things to tell you, so I keep on repeating them. But people can quickly pick up if you know something, when you're talking to them about real estate or whatever. And it's manifested in ways like being debt-free, having children that are really, they've got a great idea about property, all of that kind of stuff. So that gives me great satisfaction. And it just keeps on giving, every day or every week or whenever something small happens, and having that knowledge that you gained or learning something. Yesterday, I literally learned something. Man, I was really proud of myself. I learned something that I know is going to help me in my job. And so it doesn't matter how old you are. There's always nuggets of satisfaction waiting for you along the way. But your attitude's got to be right.
And it just shows you, you're never too old to learn, Colin.
Never. Never. But it's about your attitude and your outlook.
I agree.
If you see this thing as a chore and a mission, and you're miserable, and you probably won't see those nuggets of info lying around or get satisfaction out of them, and make something of it. So I have a lot of satisfaction out of that. And then building long-term relationships. It can really go a long way in a community. Although every now and again somebody uses another agent that really upsets me, that why didn't you use me? and that feels like treachery on the grand scale. But overall, the long-term relationships bear fruit as you go along. And there's a continuous stream of people reaching out to you. It can be tiresome. I use the expression, some of my days are crazy, and it's because everybody wanted a piece of me. And that's the expression I use, So building long-term relationships and being part of the community and stuff can have its drawbacks. But ultimately, the way you deal with things and you handle things and whatever, long-term relationships are very rewarding. And it's like a gift that keeps on giving. Every time somebody calls you and you've known them 20, 30, 40 years, and now it's bearing fruit, there's satisfaction in that, and you don't need to pat yourself on the back about that, but the fact that you've been this consistent, helpful, approachable person and come across maybe as knowledgeable or been of assistance sometime. You and I always talk about Brian Buffini, and he's got a very famous expression. If you dish it out in slices, you'll get it back in loaves. And there's a lot of truth in that. So these little slices that you dish out and acts of goodwill and showing interest and all of that stuff, and you embed yourself in your community, and it does come back to you.
Question, it's always struck me that you have always been interested in people. You ask questions and you really listen. I've often been astounded at the detail that you remember about people. Honestly, it's actually been quite an astounding characteristic that has stood out. So
you mean I haven't got crib notes up my arm?
you would think, and it's actually remarkable. So do you think that that has developed with your profession, or is that just always been something you've?
No, I think it's probably developed. But when you say how are you, you need to mean it.
Yes.
Because that's probably when you're going to be retaining things.
So it's not just small talk then. It's more than small talk.
But what did I say? You must mean what you say and say what you mean, and that goes a long way. And it won't manifest maybe that week or that month or that year, but someday along the line, well, you live in hope. So relationship management, it's an aspect of relationship management, which is part of my job. There's, you won't believe it, software about it. The most simple example being remembering people's birthdays. Look how I remember your birthday. It's astounding. I have never missed one of your birthdays since I knew you. What an example. What an example.
Oh, that is hilarious.
5 years, Anne and I share a birthday.
Absolutely. My birthday twin. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of my kids is even on the same birthday. I planned it so we don't have to spend extra money on parties. It shows you the level of planning that I can achieve. It's not easy.
So clever.
But so relationship management has been part of my profession. That simple example, remembering people's birthdays and this and that, the other, because you've got to stay relevant and stay foremost in people's minds. And it's about when they've got a question about real estate, who do they think first? So you've got to be uppermost in people's minds. And you've got to work at that. You haven't seen somebody for 5 years. And when you phone him about, you saw his properties in the market and it hits him like a ton of bricks. Sure, but he forgot about me. Now he's thrilled that I can get involved or whatever. But that's too late, sometimes for me to help him, So then I was an afterthought. So you've got to be gregarious. There is that. My wife thinks I've got a party trick. We travel, we go overseas, we go here, there, and everywhere. And we've never really been to a place where somebody hasn't recognized me and known me. And my wife thinks we're jinxed. We can really go. We can go overseas and we can be in far places, and suddenly you run into somebody from Clarkstorp, And that's just a manifestation of how you acquire these relationships in your town, and it manifests itself in the weirdest ways, in the weirdest places, and whatever. So my wife thinks it's amusing. I think it's just a manifestation, So it could be like we met each other in the MCC. It just happens to be Thailand or Mozambique or wherever. But that's how it manifests itself,
That's amazing. Sure.
So, so there's satisfaction in that,
Of course.
We can always have a laugh about it afterwards, but there's satisfaction in that. So in my profession, and I'm going to end off by saying this, my cup runneth over. That's what I can tell you.
Isn't that wonderful? Colin, this is an inspiration, I think, for anybody who wants to go into this particular profession. Listening to your background, listening to the insights that you've shared, and, it's more than financial. It's a lot more than that. And you've spoken about relationships. You've spoken about personal development within your career, but it boils down to the wealth in the personal relationships that you've built with people over the years, and that you will take with you even long after you've retired. So it's a lifelong manifestation, you use that word. Absolutely. So thank you for that. And I really hope that if someone is considering this profession, that this conversation will have inspired them. Thank you very much.
It's a great pleasure.
And we'll chat again, Colin. See you next time.
Soon, sooner rather than later.
Yes, absolutely. See you soon. Bye for now.
Cheers and bye.